Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining me. I'm in the garage here. We're looking at these tire machines. I've had these in my garage for the last year. I've had it a year now. And I want to just kind of do like a full review, go through the process of changing a tire off of a rim. So taking a tire off, putting it back on. If you're new to tire machines or you're looking for a machine and want to know kind of the ins and outs, how they work, I'm going to go through that in this video. Now these machines are not Tesla branded. I added these stickers after the fact, like that Tesla there, and then on my balancer. They're from a company called Katool. I got them on Amazon. I'll leave a link to them. Just took the stickers off, put these Tesla ones on there because I do a lot of, I have 3 Teslas. I do a lot of Tesla wheels. Today we're doing my 21-inch wheel from my Model Y, and that's a new rim I'm going to take this tire off, put it on there. So it's the same process if you're just taking a tire off, put it back on. So what's included with this machine and, some of the features as I kind of go through the process here. One thing you don't learn about is on the back of these tire machines, when you get it, there's a regulator here on the back. The fitting that comes on it, it's a male end, so you need a female coupler, but you need to get a 3/8 T, so T is in tire, coupler size. I have a separate hose. See this yellow hose? This goes all the way from here. I just coil it up when I'm not using it and I store it under my machine, but when I'm using the machine, I run it all the way here to the front of my garage and I hook it up to my compressor. And the compressor I use is just this Craftsman 26-gallon, 160 psi. So you need to have an air compressor for a tire machine. But on this end of the yellow hose, I have just a 1/4-inch male adapter that goes into the female here. So I just change this hose so it fits into here every time. I keep it about 150 psi. With only 26 gallons, it does run a little bit when I'm using the machine, but you don't need to have like an industrial size compressor to run this machine. You just need to have some kind of compressor. Here on the machine, this back post, support post here, is also seconds as the air tank. So it probably holds, I don't know, 5 to 7 gallons of air. Most of the machine uses air to operate, except the table. You do need to plug it in just to a standard outlet, like I just have it plugged in, like right there. The table moves with electric power, has an electric motor to move the table, so you can go front or, you can go back or front, lift it up or down. The jaws open up with compressed air. So you press that down, they open up, you can stop it along the way, and it'll clamp. That's how you clamp your wheel, and then this is the bead breaker here. It also has this assist arm. It kind of swivels out of the way. It has this other arm here where there's a bead roller and kind of like a tire lifting wheel here on my wheels to help keep the tire in the drop center. So this is all operated by this is all air operated hydraulically off that there. So you just want to get a valve core removal tool. You need to buy this separately and just remove the valve core inside of the valve stem. It's going to release all the air so we can break the bead. All right, we are going to reuse that valve core into the valve stem again. So to get the bead, so this is called the bead breaking process. There's this pad right here that the back of the rim is going to rest against. When we're breaking the bead, we want to make sure that we're not breaking against the TPMS sensor. So I just want to get this like shovel here. I want to get it lined up right next to the rim and the bead of the tire, and I'm going to step on the pedal and it'll press against it. Actually went pretty easy. Now this tire's only been on there for a month. If you get a tire that's been on there a long time, there can be some corrosion, and it can take multiple hits at multiple spots to break the bead. This one broke pretty easily. So now I have the valve stem over here, and I'm going to hit right here just to get both sides. Okay, now that the bead is broken on this, I want to turn it around. I want to do the same thing on the back side. A few uses of the bead breaker, the compressor went on, so that can happen with a smaller compressor like that. I like to get the rim all the way exposed like this, so that way it's easier to clamp and I'm not clamping the tire, especially with these lower profile tires here. So I just want to make sure that bead is off of the edge of the rim all the way around. It can do 26-inch rims on the inside, 28 on the outside. That's why I like this machine, because you can do really big rims. I'm always doing, most of my cars have 20s, 21s, or 22s. This is a 21-inch rim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up on the table, and I'm going to have the inside clamps clamp the inside of the rim. So I have it up here, and I just want to kind of get it centered on there, and then I want to look down underneath, kind of spin it around, and just make sure that it's going to clamp on the rim, it's going to clamp the rim, not the tire. Here's a shot from the bottom here. We'll show you as I hit the middle pedal here, it's going to clamp. You see those clamps clamping the rim? And then I'm going to move this. On the bottom, I want to look underneath and just make sure that it's clamped. Sometimes you'll catch the tire. If the tire is still close to the bead, it'll catch the tire sometimes. So you want to make sure that you're clamped onto the rim on all 4 clamps and not the tire. So we're good there. Now, because I'm reusing this tire, this is good practice with all tires, but especially with one that you're reusing. Like this one's a new tire. It only has like 500 miles on it or less. So I'm reusing it. I'm putting a new rim on. I want to lubricate the bead on both the top and the bottom of the beads as I'm getting it off. It's going to help get it off easier. It's going to protect the bead from tearing. So I'm going to get out my tire lube. I use the Murphy's tire compound lube. It's a concentrated mix. I fill this up half and then half with water and mix it up, and it makes it kind of like a syrupy mix, and it works really well. All right, here's where I like this roller, because I can press down on the bead, and then I can spin the tire, and it kind of just rolls it, and I can lubricate the bead as it spins around. Okay, we got the top bead lubricated. Let's get that off. We'll show you what the process is there. So I lift this up. Now I want to get this. This is called the duck head, and mainly because it looks like this is the head of the duck, this is the feather of the duck, this is the beak. And what we want to do is we want to make the adjustments so that it sits right on the edge of the rim here. So this dial at the top helps with the depth, how close it gets to the rim on this side. And then if you push down from the top here, you're able to adjust how far it comes down. See, this thing's helpful to help press this down like this. So what I do is I just have it touch the rim and then come up just a millimeter if you can, and then you lock in that position there. And then with this screw here, we can see how close it gets to we want it like, if we can, 1 to 2 millimeters away from the surface of the face of the rim. We don't want this touching the rim. This one does come with these plastic guards, so if it touches the wheel, it's not going to damage it. So now the process, I need to bring this top bead on top of the duck head here. So what I'm going to do is, it comes with a tire iron, this comes with the machine. I want to stick this in under the bead, lift it up, and I'm going to use the duck head to leverage this over this. Now, to be able to stretch that over the duck head, we need to have the tire in the drop center. So we want to make sure the tire is pressed down on this other side. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for this tire to move over the duck head. So I'm just running this bead roller around it so that way it's in the drop center on this side. So if it's in the drop, so if the tires drop down on this side, which is good, we can then lift it up on this side here. So this roller here is now giving me some space. Go see, I get my tire iron in here and I grip the bead, and then I lift up on my bead roller here, and then with some force, I'm going to pull that over. And that's where having some lubricant on it's going to help it slip over the head. So that's exactly what we want. So I'm just going to hold the tire iron here. I'm going to hit the pedal and move this like that. So see how now that duck head is pulling the tire off. Now what we need to do is we need to get the bottom bead up over this duck head and kind of do the same process on the bottom bead. And this is a little harder because you've got to lift the tire up, this bottom bead, almost all the way up to here. That's where this assistant arm can be helpful. This little wheel here on this assistant arm can help lift this up, so that way I can get this tire iron down under that bead and then pull it up over the duck head. All right, I'm going to show you the full process. I'm going to try not to edit out a lot of the steps. I just want this to be a thorough So what I'm doing is I'm lifting up this side all the way to the top of the rim. Okay, and then if I can hold that up there and get my tire iron So now my tire iron is down through the bottom of the tire. It's touching the table now, which is good. Now I'm going to use this assistant arm to get underneath here and help me lift the tire up. That way, when the edge of the bead gets to the top of the tire here, I'll be able to leverage this over, and it will get that bead over the duck head. So I'm going to hold that there. I'm just lifting the tire up. So see how this is helping hold the tire up? It's hard to do this with just two hands. Okay, so now I got that. So see how my tire iron is down through the bottom, so it's sticking down through the bottom. I'll show you a view from this side. So now that the tire iron is through here, so see how I'm pulling up on, I'm leveraging this iron down to get the bead over the duck head, and I'm going to move my... Okay, so now we're moving, and the tire's now been released. So with the tire now off, what I do is I just release this handle. That releases. I tip the tire back like this, and I move this out of the way, and I can take this tire off. Now what I'm going to swap out the rim, but I also want to swap out the TPMS sensor. This is a Tesla TPMS sensor. Some of them you're going to use a tool to get the valve stem in. These ones just screw on. So I think these are kind of easier. So I've got the TPMS sensor out. I'm going to get the new wheel on and swap this sensor back into the other wheel. It's going to release it. So I'm just going to release it just a little bit, because the same size of wheel is going back on there. So here's the new wheel. That other one was like all curb rashed up, and this is a brand new one. Little collar on. Now with these, you just want to make sure that they're seated up there flush against the mounting surface. I'm just going to use my socket by hand and just hold it up there, make sure that it's nice and flush. You don't want this to be sideways or crooked. You want that to seat really tightly, and then I'm just going to tighten it down. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll get some of my tire lube compound, and I'll just spin the rim, and I'll just make sure that this is lubricated, because the bead is going to seat, has to kind of move against this area. Okay. It's going to help seat the bead. That back down so everything looks good on the clamp. Now I can get my tire up here, and I want to lubricate the tire. So I use this very liberally. I just get it on there really good. You want to make sure you get it nice and lubricated. Really, the inside of the bead is where you want it. And then I also do the inside on both sides, because this is where there's a lot of friction when you're getting this mounted on there. So I do the inside of the bead on both sides. Inside there, because that's really what's going to be being pulled over the duck head, so we want to make sure this inside edge is really lubricated. Now you want to check on the tire for directional. If it's a directional, meaning it has to be going one way, you'll do one side one, the other side the other way. This one is just, it's not directional, but there is an inside marking here and an outside. So the inside is going to be on the inside of the wheel, the outside is here. So what I'm doing now is I just want to get the tire kind of set up. So I have it kind of tipped like this, so I can move my duck head in. Now on the duck head, one thing to point out, this is the feather of the duck head. You want the tire on this when it's getting mounted, and then under the duck head. So I want to get the bead of the tire on top of that feather in the back and under the head here, like that. With it over the feather, under the head, I'm going to just, this bottom bead goes on very easily. I'm just going to spin it, and it just plops on pretty easily. This top bead is the harder one. I'm just checking to make sure that this isn't touching. It's very close, but it's not touching, which is kind of what you want. So I'm just going to lift the tire up onto the... I want this tire over this feather part and then under the duck head when I'm getting this top bead on. So this roller here helps keep this duck head under. Let me get my assistant arm. This assisting arm is going to help keep the tire in the drop center. In order for this tire to get pulled over the edge of this, you have to have the tire in the drop center of the rim. If it's not, you'll break the bead. The bead is steel and it won't stretch, so it has to be in the drop center, and I'll show you what that means as we kind of start working on this here. This has an adjustable arm. I want these to kind of be the same height. So if I screw this up a little bit, I want these to kind of be the same height. Right now, this one's pressing more than that is, so I wanted to kind of press the same amount. So I can just unscrew this, and so that way they're... So this bead roller is right next to the duck head. It's going to help keep that. So this roller is going to help press against the duck head, just keeping this, because sometimes this bead wants to come over the duck head, and this roller is helping to keep it under it. So that's the purpose of this. The purpose of this arm is to help keep the tire down. The drop center is right below this ridge in the rim right here. So you want to keep the bead right below this ridge into the shallow part of the rim. That's going to help it come over the edge. So I'm just adjusting this and sometimes I'll hold it like this just because the force of the wheel wants to force this way here. So this is a part where we're starting to get some friction on the tire. Sometimes I might lift this up a little bit and move it back because I want to have the drop center make sure that it's directly across from where this is going in. I want to make sure that this is staying down in the drop center. Okay, it's down enough. Let's move this along here. Okay, that dropped in pretty easily. Now sometimes what can happen is this arm moves along with the tire, and I've hit this a couple times on this arm here, so I'm just going to reverse. It's close clearance there. I'm just going to reverse the table. Now that it's reversed, I can then get this out like that, move this out of the way. So the bead is now set. I can release this arm, move that out of the way. You see how the tire is now, it's in the drop center. So I'm going to release the jaws. Before I inflate it, what I want to do is I want to release the jaws. Oh. All right, this sometimes happens. This jaw is kind of caught by the tire. So all I need to do now is what I want to do is I want to lift the tire up off of the rim a little bit so the jaw can be released off of it. So that's where this little helper disc. See how I lifted this up? Now the jaw is kind of released. Sometimes when this jaw gets pulled back, it will catch on the tire. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm just lifting this up so the jaws can be released from the rim and the tire. Okay, I'm going to release. Okay, I'm releasing that again. Okay, we're good now. Now to seat the bead, because this won't hold air as is, we have to like seat the beads. So what I'm going to do in this one, I'm going to put the valve core back in. I can already tell that the beads are going to seat pretty easily, so I don't need a full force of air. I'm going to put the valve core in. If you don't put the valve core in, you get more air going in at one time, and it helps seat the bead if you need that. But then when you take the inflator off, all the air comes out. You got to put the valve core in, and you have to re-inflate it. This way, I save a step because the air won't escape. The valve core is kind of like a one-way valve. All right, this machine comes with like a separate air inflator. I replaced the air inflator with this one, an electronic one, so I can see the exact measurement of air. And then I also replaced it with this lock inflator. This one's got like 6 jaw clamps. It works really well. So I'm just going to clamp on here and just inflate it. This uses the air out of the, just the compressor. Each side of the wheel will pop when the bead is seated. You kind of see how the tire's kind of gaining its form. It's pressing away from the inside of the tire. It's going to move out. It could take up to 45 psi. So the back just popped. The back's on. The front still needs quite a bit of air. I can slowly see it growing here. It's 23 psi. It could take up to 40. The psi rating that these get set at is 42 psi. All right, you heard that big pop. That's at 27 psi, so I'm just going to air it back up. Now, if I didn't have the valve core in, what I would do now is I would take this off, put the valve core in, and then inflate it up to my psi that I would have it at. One thing I didn't mention, but I did this anyways, is there's sometimes the yellow and red markings on the edge of the sidewalls. The yellow is the lighter side, and so usually what I'll do is I'll line that up with the valve stem. So this yellow mark here is lined up with the valve stem, so that way it could require less weight to balance the tire. Before you seat the beads, you move the tire around the rim to kind of line up these markings. Like I did this with some trailer wheels recently that have a really big sidewall and a very narrow rim, and it was like really floppy and it was hard to seat the bead. These actually low profile tires are actually a lot easier to seat. That is seated really easily. I didn't have to remove the valve core. But this machine has this big, this has this bead blaster built into it. So what you do is you release this, all of the air from this thing just gets injected into the tire, and it helps it inflate. So you would have the inflator on the valve stem inflating it. You'd turn this on, and it would inject all the air in, and it would help seat the beads. So I had to use that on like tires with smaller, more narrow rims and like really big sidewalls that are really floppy. Let's move over to the balancer here. This is just kind of a basic balancer. It works really good. I'm using the cone that I'm using based on the size of the hub bore of the rim. And then I have this spring. The spring helps keep pressure against this, keeping it against the wheel here. So I have this set up here. This comes with several different cones for different size hub bores. So I get that on. These rims are actually really easy because it has a center cap that goes here, but it's a really flat area that this wing nut can press against, and it makes it so the wheel gets like centered on the hub very easily. So I'm just going to tighten this down. As I get towards the end, I just spin it, and I hold the wing nut so that way that it kind of centers itself on that cone. And then I press down just to make sure that it's tight there. Okay, there's a couple inputs that you have to make. The first one on this balancer is you do the A setting, which is how far the rim is from this little measuring guide. So what I do is I pull this out, see like that, and there's a little tape measure here, and that one's at 3.5. So I input 3.5. The B setting is the width of the rim. You can measure it there's a measuring tool. This one I know is a 10.5 inch rim, so I have it set at 10.5. And then this last measurement is the diameter of the rim. It's a 21 inch rim, so I'm doing that. There's different styles of where you're putting weights. I'm using all stick-on weights. I'm going to use this bottom one, ALU3, which is a weight right towards the face and then a weight right on the edge, so I could do stick-on weights towards the inside and then towards the outside, so it'll give me that reading there. So once I have those in place, I have that on there tight, I just kind of give it a spin and I hit start, and then we'll see how much weight's needed to balance this thing. Now while I'm waiting for that, one thing I added to this machine, there's a laser right here. I added this because it's on this machine you add the weight to the top, like at the 12 o'clock position. Alright, you see how it says 0 here. 0 is on the outside, so I don't have to add any weight on the outside. I just need to add 1 ounce to the inside position. This is where having this laser, I added this after the fact, so if I press the laser on, it's going to give me a laser right across the 12 o'clock position on the wheel, so that way when I reach into the wheel, I'll be able to know exactly where I need to position that weight. Now, if this rim is new, but if it's a dirty wheel, you want to make sure just kind of get some water in a towel and wipe it off, so that way that the stick-on weights will stick on. So I'm going to rotate the wheel, and then as soon as this lights up solid, that means that's the 12 o'clock position on the wheel that I need to put the 1 ounce of weight. So right there. This doesn't have a hold feature where it holds it in place, so you kind of have to hold it in place by hand. I've got my laser on. You can't. I know you can't see it. It's daylight, but the laser's on. So I'm just going to reach in all the way to the front of the wheel. Okay, got that weight centered right. The quarter ounce weight's like right between the line on the laser. I'm just going to press that down really hard just to activate the adhesive. I'm going to respin it. Hit start, and we'll see if it reads 0. If both read 0, that means it's balanced. Asking for 1/2 ounce. Let's find the spot here. It's actually almost at the same location. It's asking for 1/2 ounce. So I'm going to put a little bit more weight on there, and we'll see what that does. Now this laser is just battery powered. I'll leave a link to the one that I use, but you can just plug in a micro USB plug to it, and you can just charge it up. Like, the battery lasts quite a while. This one it's asking for 1/2 ounce, almost right where the other weight is. So I'm putting it next to it in the wheel. I'll show you when I get the wheel off where I put the weight, because it's kind of hard to see. But let's just roll that. See if we can get all zeros. All right, see now we have all zeros on the screen. That means it's balanced. No more weight is needed. So there's our weight there. So this was the first set that I put in. And then the second set I put right next to that because it wanted it right there. And I didn't want to put it on top of that weight, so I just put it right next to it there. So we have the weight stacked right there. So that's 1.5 ounces of weight. And we're all set. Okay guys, so that's the process to take a tire off, put it back on, and to balance it with these machines. I've really enjoyed having these in my garage. I'm not a shop, I'm just a DIY homeowner that bought these because I'm switching out tires a lot. One thing this has been useful for is that I have 3 Teslas, okay, and so I do a lot of Tesla wheels and tires, but one thing I've been doing with this is I've been kind of looking at my local classifieds to see people selling like just some rims by themselves. I'll buy those at a good deal, and then I'll put some new tires on them. I'll just put like a budget set of new tires on there, and I'll sell them for $200 to $500 on top of what I'm into them for. And I'm into these machines about $3,000, and I've already sold like over 8 sets of wheels and tires for a profit. And so I've kind of paid myself back on this tire machine setup. And because I don't have to go to the tire shop, I can order my tires online. I can just have them here and mount them. So it's been very useful, very, very helpful, especially because a lot of my cars I'm swapping on winter tires in the winter. Every time I'm going to the tire shop, I'm paying $150 for them to do that. So this has been super helpful. I'll leave a link to this down below. I'm glad I got this. It's a great setup. It's been great for all the uses that I've needed it for. I've done ATV tires with some adapters. I've done up to 22-inch rims on my Yukon, so it's pretty versatile in what it can do. I've even done my dirt bike tires on this. So if you're doing tires kind of a lot and you think it might be a good idea, it's been useful for me, it's been helpful, and it's kind of paid off. So guys, thanks for watching the video. See a link down below to all like the machines, the tools, kind of the extra things that I talked about along the way. But thanks for watching the video. Leave your comments down below, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.